Hello, hello. Welcome to the webinar. I am going to be spending some time talking to you about neurofeedback today. My name is Dr. Stephanie Stecker. I am the founder of Mountain Vista Psychology. And at Mountain Vista Psychology, we really take a holistic approach. We have counselors who specialize in working with different age groups, children, teens, adults, and we really have a brain-based approach to helping you reach your therapeutic goals. And so one of the modalities that we use a lot is neurofeedback, and I am so excited to share more about neurofeedback with you today. So you may have heard about neurofeedback. When I first started in neurofeedback, most people did not know what it was. I would have a client who was doing neuro with me, and I would call, to coordinate care with a psychiatrist or a family physician or something like that. And the people on the other end often had not heard of it. Thankfully, that's not the case anymore. Most people have heard of neurofeedback. They may not know or understand everything that it does and who it works best for, but hopefully you have heard of it. Hopefully you know someone who has gotten support, and they may be someone with ADHD, they may be someone with anxiety, depression, on the autism spectrum, struggling with trauma. It also works really well for people who have had concussions and mild to moderate TBI. So if you know somebody who's got neurofeedback, you've probably heard about how well it can work. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am before I dig into all the information I'm going to share today. So like I said at the beginning, my name is Dr. Stephanie Stecker. I'm a licensed psychologist. I've worked with kids, teens, families, individuals for almost 20 years. I'm the founder of Mountain Vista Psychology, which is a group practice with amazing clinicians, and we serve the Denver metro area. I'm board certified in neurofeedback. I'm also a QEEG diplomate. So what these things mean is really I have done the training, gotten mentoring, taking the test, shown a certain level of competence, both in neurofeedback as well as QEEG. And the QEEG are the brain maps that we develop with the data that we collect, which is the electrical activity in your brain. And we put a cap on your head. Nothing goes into your head, but we collect the electrical activity from 19 different sites. And then I'm the one who looks at that electrical activity and is able to understand the brainwave data and come up with these brain maps. And the QEEG diploma, if you're gonna do neurofeedback, it's important to have someone who's trained to artifact that data and choose protocols and all of that sort of thing. So that's just an extra level of training. I'm also trained in EMDR, and I'm also trained in tapping, EFT tapping, along with more traditional therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy. I definitely have a very strong interest in cutting edge therapies that help people get the changes they want to get fast. And so if traditional talk therapy hasn't worked for you, don't give up on therapy. There are a number of other therapies that really can help and also have research behind them that we do at Mountain Vista, and there are other practitioners, obviously, who do those as well. So at Mountain Vista, we have helped countless families create peace and connection in their homes and family relationships, as well as individuals create that for themselves in their own lives. And then personally, I've been married to my husband for almost 20 years. I have a grown stepdaughter and a son and daughter in their teen years. And as a family, we love all the Colorado things. We are the stereotypical Colorado family. We love hiking, traveling, skiing, and my husband especially is a huge mountain bike fan. So that's a little bit about who I am. So why do I love neurofeedback? For me, neurofeedback is personal. I saw neurofeedback make a huge difference in the life of my own family. I was a licensed psychologist and had my own practice, and then, you know, had neurofeedback make such a difference in the life of my family at the time that I just, gosh, I became so passionate. I wanted everybody to know it existed and to have access to it. That really ended up being a value of mine. And so at the time I was in solo practice, and again, at the time, not many people were doing neuro. And so I was like, wow, you know, my wait list literally was like almost a year long and growing. And I was like, all right, I am going to hire the best counselors that I could find and train them to do the neurofeedback. That way more people can have access. And that's really how Mountain Vista was born. So we now it's a group practice. I provide mentoring. And also a few years ago, you know, we are a private pay practice, and we were full and busy, but I noticed and learned that Medicaid pay, although most private insurances do not cover neurofeedback, Medicaid was covering neurofeedback. But the issue was, if you have Medicaid, you're not allowed to pay for services privately if Medicaid covers the service. But nobody in the Denver metro area was providing neurofeedback services and taking Medicaid. So then it became my mission to serve those with Medicaid in addition to those with private pay. So that's where we're at today. All right, what is neurofeedback? In a nutshell, neurofeedback is just learning. In 20 neurofeedback sessions with feedback every half a second. Think about how often that is. That's crazy to wrap your head around. Technology is amazing. You get 72,000 chances to learn. So through neurofeedback, you learn to modify your brainwave activity so your brain can work better for you. So you go in, you get this cap on your head. We collect the electrical activity from your brain. Like I said, I look at all that data at Mountain Vista, other places, other people do obviously as well. And then through that, we have this map of what to do and how to help your brain. We put electrodes on your head. Again, nothing goes into your brain. We collect the electrical activity and feed it back to you. So it's kind of like, you know, those speed signs at the side of the road that feed back how fast you're going. It's like that. So with that, your brain learns to modify what it's doing and create new neural pathways. It's so super cool. So when can neurofeedback be helpful? It's helpful for brain-based difficulties versus environmental difficulties. So I always give the glasses analogy. I am someone who needs glasses or contacts in order to see well. And if you took those aids away from me, if you took my glasses or contacts away from me, I would not be able to see clearly. All day long, I could try my hardest. All day long, someone could be saying, Stephanie, just do better, just do better. It wouldn't matter. My eyes need glasses or contacts to help them see. And in that way, our brains, when we have something going on like focus issues or anxiety, or like I said, trauma changes the way the brain operates, autism spectrum, depression, when we've had a brain injury, our brain is not functioning as optimally, just like my eyes aren't when I don't have my glasses or contacts. And to help the brain function more optimally, you can do neurofeedback, or you can take medication. And the thing is in the brain, when information travels neuron to neuron, there's an electrical reaction as well as a chemical reaction. And so when thinking about it, neurofeedback addresses the electrical, medication addresses the chemical. And so that's kind of how it works. And so when someone has medication that they're using to support their brain, we love to collaborate with prescribers so that if possible, we can collaborate with them to decrease medication, because as the brain is learning more, oftentimes people don't need as much medication. This is not always the case, but it's often the case. So types of issues neurofeedback can treat. There is research on ADHD, autism spectrum, depression, anxiety, learning disabilities, trauma, seizures, traumatic brain injury, substance abuse, addiction, and peak performance. So quite the list. And there is a comprehensive bibliography that's literally overwhelming to look at with peer-reviewed research that looks at these different areas. The most research is on ADHD for sure. The other areas we are still developing research on, but we do have evidence that neurofeedback is effective. I have not seen any research to date for sensory integration, but at MVP, we found it to be extremely helpful to address sensory issues as well. Okay, are there age limitations? Yes. So there are some practitioners who will work with kids as young as 3 years old. Research indicates neurofeedback works best once a person reaches 7 years of age, and there's no upper limit. You know, our oldest client has been, I want to say, late 70s, early 80s. And so people in their senior years do neurofeedback. We have had some people who have said, please, can we just try neuro? My kid isn't 7 yet. And thankfully, everyone we've done that with, it has worked well for those people. But it's still good to know that most effective research indicates 7 and older. All right. The evidence is strong for neuro, especially with ADHD. The American Academy of Pediatrics, so that's like a non-biased entity, right? They list neurofeedback as a level 1 support for ADHD. And the other modality that is in that level 1 support is medication. So that's as good as it gets. And that's based on, 30, 35 years of research on neurofeedback with people with ADHD. Does it work for everybody? No. Nothing works for everybody, I don't think. At least I haven't found it. Research indicates amplitude training. So there's different kinds of neurofeedback training at Mountain Vista. We typically do amplitude and coherence training. And you'll notice that if you talk to different practitioners in the community, there are different people doing different sorts of things. Ours is QEEG guided, so meaning we look at that brain map, amplitude or coherence training. And research indicates amplitude training, and there is the most research on amplitude training out of all kinds of neurofeedback. Works for 80% of those who try it. At Mountain Vista, we have seen our success rate to be above 90%, and we do, track data on who has some good improvements with it. That said, it still doesn't work for everyone. So what we like to do is we like to monitor progress through the time people do neurofeedback, and we typically know by session 15 if neuro is going to be effective or not. It doesn't mean all the changes are in place, but we're starting to see the person doing the neurofeedback training get some good changes in their life. And then it's like a snowball effect, right? So between sessions 8 to 12, especially, we start to see some small changes, and then those changes grow and grow as the person's brain continues to improve in functioning with the training, and until there's almost like this new normal, which is really cool. Does neurofeedback last? Yes, there is longitudinal data supporting the effects that neurofeedback are in place for 10 years post-treatment for most people. Once the training stops, the brain continues to use its capabilities and can even continue to improve for people. The effects are most likely to last, though, if a person has a healthy lifestyle and relationships. Neurofeedback is not a cure for anything, but it does help to train the brain to function more optimally. The other thing I'm going to say that I didn't put in this slide is that there are some people who for example, eat gluten and have a gluten sensitivity, that it causes inflammation in the brain. And so they may need to go gluten-free for those changes to last. So if there is any dietary sensitivity, it's important to be aware of that as well. And then this piece about the effects are most likely to last if a person has healthy lifestyle and relationships. At Mountain Vista, I made a decision back when I told you, right? It was just me. And then I was like, how do I want to do this thing and help more people get that kind of help they need? And I made a decision to only have providers who had at least a master's degree in counseling. And this is why. So if you think about 100% of a challenge you're having, neurofeedback is not going to take away that 100% for most people. They're going to need to do some other things as well to reach their goals. Like, really, people don't come to us and say, I want to do neurofeedback because doing neurofeedback is my goal. No. You're doing neurofeedback because you want to have some change in an area of your life. And so when I think about that, I wanted anybody who's doing neurofeedback at Mountain Vista to have the support, if needed, of a clinician who can help in other ways with whether it's anxiety or trauma or ADHD or whatever it is, so that when you leave, you are as close as possible to having as much as possible of your goals met. And so I think it's important to look at that whole person and, give that more comprehensive support. If people have another outside therapist and they want to do neuro, then we also think it's really important for that person to keep working with their outside therapist and for us to collaborate. Again, so you can have that comprehensive care to get the changes you want. That's why you're doing this. All right. So the therapy process, I've talked a little bit about this, but the assessment, that's that QEEG. And then we want to get good background information, set goals with you, understand what your needs are, and we'll do other testing if appropriate to your situation. But we want to really understand who you are and why you're doing this so that we could help you reach those goals. And so that's the first part. And this is what it looks like. So here's that cap, and we put this cap on your head. And then you see those blue circles. Those are the 19 locations that we will then put some gel in. It's a conductor, so we could collect electrical activity from your brain. And then it's fed, you see that rainbow cord? It's fed into the hardware, and then into the software, where then I can get it's recorded. And then once it's recorded, I can look at it, like I said, and get the brain map. So then after that, the therapy process, neuro training, neurofeedback sessions at Mountain Vista. Again, everybody does something slightly different. But at Mountain Vista, we do 45-minute appointments at least twice a week with 20 to 30 minutes of neurofeedback during each appointment. So for each appointment, you come in, you get electrodes, not that whole cap, just single electrodes put on your head. And from there, you do the training. And research really indicates twice a week is what is needed to get those brain differences. So it's important to commit to twice a week. Neuro is a bit of a commitment for sure. The average numbers of sessions needed is 30 to 40, depending on the issues treated or the amount of medication someone is on. But there are also people who end up doing more than 40 sessions. So it just really depends on your needs, your goals. Again, we are not a place that has, we like to meet people where they're at and look at their goals and figure out what we can do to best support you to get there. And then what you want to do is then up to you. And again, different people work differently with this. I know there are some people who do packages. with, you buy 10 or 20 sessions or 30. Everybody works a little different. So, but this is how we do it. And all right, so some people want to come in and they only want to address one issue. Like I've had some people who say, I know I have anxiety and ADHD. I really want to focus on anxiety. And sometimes we see that difference in the brain map, and we'll just train the brain waves consistent with anxiety and not touch maybe the slow brain waves that are more consistent with ADHD, if that's what the person is wanting, right? If they don't want to change their ADHD. There's also some people who come in with combinations of issues like ADHD, depression, sleep, anxiety, trauma. And when you have a whole bunch of different issues that you want to address, the process can take longer, right? Because it's more complex, there's more going on. This is, if you have all those things going on, we're probably gonna have more than neurofeedback that we're supporting you with if you're not getting that support elsewhere, so that you can, again, walk out and create as much of that life that you really wanna live as you can. All right, so here is what a game looks like. So what we do when we're doing the training is the person plays a game with their brain. So I don't know if you've seen Wreck-It, I think it was Wreck-It Ralph, right? The character Glitch, where when Glitch kind of quote unquote short-circuited, she kind of freeze, right? And that's what the games do when your brain waves are not doing what we're telling them to do when we're training them. When your brain waves are doing what we're telling them to do, then it drives smoothly. And so you also will get, so that's the visual feedback. The auditory feedback are beeps. You'll hear a beep when your brain waves are doing what we're telling them to do. All right, so types of brain waves. We look at types of brain waves: delta, theta, alpha, beta, high beta. And there's also, these are broader. We also, at MVP, really like to focus on the exact, like delta, for example, is 1 to 4 hertz. We like to look at each one of those, what are called 1 hertz bends, to help you get the changes you need to change. But these are the brain waves that we look at to train. For example, most people who have ADHD, research indicates, have too much what is called theta in the brainwave, and that's a slower brainwave. So it's like the brain is always idling. People with anxiety typically have too much high beta in their brain. So then we would teach the brain not to have as much high amplitude of those brainwaves, and that creates the changes. So when looking at choosing a protocol, we use the QEEG data. We look at client symptoms. We look at knowledge of brain anatomy and where to train the brain. So that we look at a whole bunch of different information to best choose the protocol that you need to choose to get the changes that you want. So it's very individualized. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing at all. Everybody's doing something a little different based on what they most need. Okay, I mentioned the gluten dilemma earlier. And I would say in our practice, it's probably under 5% that if you don't stop eating gluten, that it continues to be an issue. But it does happen where we have to say, hey, you might want to try going gluten-free in order for your neurofeedback to hold. Exercise, we know exercise is helpful for people in counseling. So again, this is looking at the holistic person, right? What can we do to best support you as a whole person? And these are some of the other things that can really help people get the most out of neurofeedback if it's needed. That said, the counseling, there are definitely people we work with who don't end up needing additional support in that way. we want to make sure that if you do need it, that you're able to easily access it. All right. So is this like other brain strengthening games? This is another question I get. So neurofeedback is very different than Lumosity or other brain game programs. Neurofeedback reframes how the brain functions versus stretching its ability to answer certain questions. And again, we're looking at your specific brain map, your specific goals, your specific brainwave activity. So everything is really targeted toward you. It's not a real generalized thing. It's really specific to help you get the changes you want to get. And then again, with that targeted learning, it's easier to make changes very, very quickly. So finding a qualified provider, I always recommend people go to www.bcia.org. There you can find people who have their BCN and are board certified in neurofeedback. If you do that, you're also going to notice there are people with BCB behind their names, and those are people board certified in biofeedback, which is also amazing. Biofeedback is most supportive for things like migraine headaches, also incontinence, things like that. Neurofeedback is more supportive for some of the things that we've talked about today, trauma, ADHD, you know, the list we've talked about. All right, so when you're looking for a provider, like I said, there's all different kinds of neurofeedback out there. Some of the things that you may want to get an understanding of are, do you use a QEEG to guide treatment? If so, who processes the data, and what is that person's training? Because there are not very many people in the world who have that QEEG diploma, and I believe it's under 100. So who processes that data? And what is their training? If not, then how do you choose where someone trains for neurofeedback? What does that process look like? Who provides the neurofeedback training? Is it a technician who does not have any specific degree in counseling or whatever you're getting treatment for, right? Is it somebody who does have specific training in what you're wanting to address? So who provides that training? Also, do they stay in the room with you? Do they sit with you through the training? Is this a one-on-one thing where they're there supporting you through and helping you get the outcomes you need? Do they hook you up and leave? These are some of the questions that I think are good to ask. What is their experience working with people who have my area of difficulty? So different people have different areas of specialization, right? And when looking for care, I think it's important to get people, even if you have someone who specializes in neurofeedback, you know, let's say you have a 10-year-old kid who is on the autism spectrum. Do they specialize working with 10-year-old kids on the autism spectrum? Will they understand your child, not just have expertise in neuro? If you're someone who has trauma, does the person that you're going to, who's going to be with you in the room, have experience working with those with trauma? Will they be able to sit alongside of you and give you support with the neurofeedback training as someone who has had trauma, and that's why you're there? So not only having experience and training in neurofeedback, but again, also, do they have expertise in working with who you are and what your needs are? How do they track progress? How do you know if things improve? At MVP, we have a couple of different ways that we do this, but I think it's important for you to understand what that is. And then if they're tracking progress, what is their success rate within their practice? How do they measure that? And then finally, does the place you're going provide holistic support or only neurofeedback training? So if you're somebody who wants to to pop in, pop out, not, do the training and not get other sorts of support, then that's great. That's good information for you to know. You just want to make sure your needs are matching the model of where you're going. So I think that that's super important to think about as well, and ask a provider. And again, all of these are not right or wrong things. It's just making sure you ask questions to ensure that where you're going is going to be a good match for what your needs are. Okay, so you can check out these resources as well for more research. I'm a research nerd, so I really love having good research to share with people. And the reason I love research is because I think it's a really good place to start to make sure that we're doing what other people have found to be most effective first. And it doesn't mean other things won't work for people, right? But like, for example, with neurofeedback, there's enough research to say it works for these people with these symptoms. It works for people when it's provided in this way. And this is what makes it last, this isn't. And so when you go in as a consumer, oh, these are the odds of it working for me, right? When there isn't research on something, that's kind of a hunt and peck thing, and we just aren't sure. So that's why I love research. And these are some things, again, you can check out. All right, next steps. So if you are in the Denver metro area, we would love to talk with you. You could go to www.mountainvistapsychology.com to learn more about the practice and check out some more resources we have. You can sign up for our mailing list. You can also email info@mountainvistapsychology.com if you want to contact us via email. We have our phone number for you. We offer a 20-minute free consultation to answer any questions you have about neuro. And so that is how you can take next steps to find out information about working with us. Like I said, there's also the BCIA website. I would encourage you to check that out. www.isnr also has a bunch of research on it. But in terms of providers, I really recommend that BCIA website. And I hope this has been helpful. I truly love neurofeedback. I've seen it make such a difference in people's lives. And if you're interested in it, I really hope that this will help you know if taking the next steps is a good thing for you to do. All right, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And until next time, I will let you go. Bye-bye.